Hello, my friends. It is Elsa Kurt here. I had this idea to start a new series on my channel. Of course, we're not changing channels or doing anything crazy. Speaking of the channel, it's really lame segue, but if you could hit the subscribe button, that would be really cool. And so I decided that I wanted to start this little series about the faith journey, my faith journey, because there's a good reason for it. Because I think there are maybe a lot of people out there like me that are new to finding and following their faith. And I thought this would be a nice little home for all of us to sit down and talk and just compare our journeys and talk about what this has been like and the types of things that we encounter and face that we may not have really known much about before. And there's so much to cover. There's so many topics. So we're going to keep them really short. I'm going to shoot for 10, 15 minutes, and that's about it, and send you on your way. I don't know if you're like me. I usually will throw on my YouTube channel or podcast or, anything, audio, video, whatever it is. Usually when I'm like in the kitchen cooking and doing stuff like that, when I'm kind of like a captive-ish audience. So even if I'm not really watching, I can listen. So maybe that will work for you too. I don't know. Tell me in the comments where you tend to do most of your like listening and watching, like well, I don't watch like regular TV. I watch like streaming services. Like I only do that at night. That's like my wind down before bed. I'll, watch a show or two. But that's it. I don't watch anything during the day other than stuff I have to or need to. So anyhow, our very first topic I thought would be a perfect starting point for this series. First of all, I don't know what we're calling the series. I'll decide by the end of I do this every time. I decide by the end of the video what the title of so the whole series is going to have a name. And then obviously each episode is going to have its own little name. I mean, it's a normal way to do things, right? So anyhow, the name of this episode is The Moment Everything Changed. Da, 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 right? So unfortunately, I don't have a great story. I don't even have a story, to be honest with you. Like, to be perfectly honest, I don't have one. And I I'm not anymore. I was really, I don't know, not embarrassed, but maybe embarrassed is the word. I felt kind of dumb that I didn't have a story to tell of why I all of the sudden turned to faith and specifically my Christian faith. And the reason why I felt embarrassed, and maybe you will find this relatable, I'm not really sure, was because, you always hear these great stories, like not great in like, oh, I'm so glad you suffered so bad that you had to, but great in the sense that they're powerful and they're just so impactful and meaningful. And that, people say, oh, well, I was an addict for, most of my adult life, and I struggled and I was at the bottom of, the well, and God spoke to me, and they have these really amazing testimonies of, why they turn to their faith. And I hear those stories and I'm like, it didn't happen like that for me. Like there wasn't a moment. There was no defining moment where I just stopped everything and said, that's it. I can't take another minute. I have to do this. I've said this before in other podcasts, other episodes, other whatever. For me, so I'm the opposite, I think, of a lot of people. Like a lot of people will say, and I've heard this, you'll hear a lot of people say in the Christian faith, change your mind and God will change your heart. And for me, it was a little different because my heart, even if I denied it, even if I ignored it, even if I, pretended it wasn't a thing for me, in me, my heart was always for God. I always had this very, very quiet relationship already with God. I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know how really to even communicate with him. I just knew that there was always something really, really strong there that was pulling me and calling me and telling me basically, get your butt over here, girl. This is where you belong. This is where you're meant to be. So come on already. And it only took me until I was 51 to listen. That's all. Hopefully for you, it's sooner. Hopefully you're younger than me. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I say that, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when. And what I've learned is it doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter if you have a big, powerful story to tell of how, you know, life was so bad and everything was so difficult, and then you turn to God and everything changed. It's okay if you don't have that story. That's what I've learned. So if you're like me, that you just, I don't know, you just finally stopped fighting it and just embraced all of it, um, that's okay. Our story's great too. There's nothing wrong with our story. Uh, just because our story doesn't come with a bang and fireworks and wow and you know light shining through the heavens. It's still a great story because you're here, not necessarily here with me, but I mean, I love that you're here with me, but you know what I mean. So yeah, it's okay that we don't have a great, amazing come to Jesus story. I love my non-story. I've grown to love my non-story. Like I kept trying to find that moment. Like I was just searching in my mind because people always ask you, "Oh, what changed?" Right? People are always like, "Oh, what made you change? What happened?" Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Just life. Just life, the world that we are living in right now. Um, Finding my own ability or sense of discernment to see what's really happening in the world and understanding that we are truly in a battle between good and evil. And, we know that good is going to win. God is going to win, but we don't know when, we don't know how, we don't know how it's going to affect us in this earthly life, all of those things. And those were a lot of the thoughts going on in my head, I guess, that, I need to embrace this thing that is, calling me. I shouldn't call it a thing. I need to embrace it and I need to accept it and I need to let it lead me. And it, of course, being God, and I need to learn about it. I need to understand it because that was a huge thing too. Even though I had this very, very quiet calling, I never read the Bible. I didn't know anything. All right. I thought I didn't know anything. Funny enough, as I'm reading Bible stories and learning more, I'm like, oh wait, that's familiar. That's familiar. So many of the things that we have just incorporated into our everyday life without even thinking about it actually come from the Bible. So many things, and maybe you found that too, that you're starting to read the Bible and you're like, wait a minute, I kind of know this story. I don't know the whole story, but I actually know this story. And that's fascinating, right? I mean, there's of course the obvious ones, like almost everybody knows, Noah's Ark and Adam and Eve, and just like the super, super obvious ones that seems like everybody knows or knows a portion of. But it's very interesting, isn't it? How much you actually know that you didn't know that you knew. And it's not like one of those crazy things. Also, I don't know like your background growing up, but I'll tell you a little bit of mine, which is, very simple in that I have an older brother. We were not raised with religion, with Christian faith or Catholic faith or any of the other ones, like zero. The only times that I had any engagement or involvement with any church of any kind was when I would go with my best friend to church, and they were very involved in the Catholic Church. They went every single Sunday. I think the dad was a deacon, um, and so that's what they did every Sunday. And if we had a sleepover, like if I slept over their house on a Saturday night and they were going to church the next morning, it was always open for me to go along with. And so I decided, well, I think I would like that. Let's do that. That'll be fun. Because they dressed up, they looked fancy all the time. That was back in the days when, people would dress up for church. I know there are people that still do, but there's certainly a lot of people that don't. And that's okay. Jesus wants you to come as you are, right? As long as you show up. But back then, uh, late 70s, mid to late 70s, very, very, very early 80s. That's the time range I'm talking about. People were, pretty much always dressed up for church. So I got to dress up and that was fun. And, we go in this, big, beautiful, ornate church. And it was very somber and quiet and echoey and, all of the things that a Catholic church typically is. And, I felt overwhelmed by it. Like, I think I wanted to love it, but I felt more a mixture of boredom. I was a kid, and the priest. I don't know if this is all Catholic priests, to be honest with you, because I honestly, I mean, I'm not kidding you. I don't really have a lot of experience at all. But it was very monotone, da 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 blah blah blah, and then they would, sing, which is like more of a chant and all of that stuff. I'm like, I'm not really getting. I don't even understand what they're talking about. This is, we're being preached to, preached at, not spoken to, not engaged with, and like none of it sat right with me. None of it made sense to me on any level. Like, I literally didn't understand what they were talking about, of course. And then the way everything was being presented didn't make sense to me. I'm like, I don't know, this is so weird to me. Like, I already feel like I, have this relationship. And I wouldn't have been able to articulate this then. I had no idea then. This is me, now reflecting and remembering and thinking back on it. And so yeah, so I did go a few times, probably like a handful of times. I had like, oh God, I can't believe I'm gonna tell you this. I had like, I'm still embarrassed by it all these years later. So, in the Catholic Church, or maybe you don't, but in the Catholic churches, there is a lot of stand up, sit down, kneel, stand up, kneel, stand up, kneel, sit down, stand up, kneel, all of that. And they fold out this little kneeling bench for you, and well, you fold it out, I should say. And when it's time to kneel. So one of the times that happened, that they did that, and now mind you, I was wearing like little patent leather shoes, because I was all dressed up, little cute little dress, little white tights, and black patent leather, shiny, shiny shoes with very slippery soles. Just saying, okay? It's not my fault what happened. So anyhow, I just followed along with everybody else did. So when they kneeled down, I kneeled down. And when it was time to stand up, I went to stand up, and my slippery, slippery patent leather shoes slipped on the floor, on the slippery floor. My slippery shoes slipped on the slippery floor. And I went like basically full body underneath our pew and like hit my chin on the kneeling bench. And, it was a loud noise because you know how echoey and loud those churches are. And all I remember is like, being in this awkward angle with my chin, jacked up on the bench, like kind of sideways. And I look up and, everybody is just staring at me. I'm pretty sure, I would bet, I can't say with certainty because my memory isn't that good. I can say with pretty good confidence that was probably the last time I ever went to church, because that was obviously really, really mortifying. So yeah. But aside from that embarrassing event. All of it made me so profoundly uncomfortable. The whole going up and receiving communion, um, all of that, every part of it was just horrendous for me. So I stopped. And my parents certainly didn't make me go because we weren't churchgoers. We just weren't raised that way. And that's not a criticism or a critique. It was just simply the way it was. I don't really know why. I've never actually even asked. I guess I will. But point being, very long-winded point being, we just weren't churchgoers. It wasn't our thing. And I always had this interest. And it's probably like the biggest reason why is, anything that you either don't have or can't have, or, somebody else has, you makes you want it or at least curious about it. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But I was always very curious as a kid. I always had really, really detailed, amazing dreams that were, I don't want to go into them right now, but they were very, I don't like the word religious. They were very spiritual, and they were recurring. And I had those types of dreams throughout my whole life, really, but especially strong when I was very young. And they left a profound effect on me. And I think that was part of what has always stuck with me, that those things meant something. And one other weird thing happened that I'm going to tell you about. Oh, of course, I'm going way over, aren't I? Yeah, of course I am. I remember we went to, obviously, this is before I knew anything about Christian faith and what this means and how you do as a Christian. So when I say this, remember this was before. I went to a psychic. I was late teen. No, I was early 20s, very early 20s, because I was engaged or married. I'm not even sure at this point, but it was in my early 20s. I had to be married then. And I remember there was a lot of things I remember from that engagement, but I specifically remember at one point she looked at me, she was saying some things, and some things resonated and some things didn't. And she said something very interesting thing to me. She said something very interesting to me. She had her eyes closed, and then she just opened them and looked at me and went, kind of like this, like, oh. And I looked at her like, yeah. And she said, oh, I didn't realize that you were from the light like me. You're the first person I've met like that. And I said, okay, hi. I didn't know how to react or what to say. I didn't know what that meant. I still don't fully know what that means, but I know, I kind of know. I think I know. So I thought that was interesting. You can think anything you want of it. You can think it's just hokey and nonsense, or maybe even blasphemous or something. I don't know. It was just an interesting thing. It did affect me, and it meant something to me. And it only strengthened my very, very quiet feeling that I had a very strong connection to God. But again, no one around me was talking about God, faith, religion, church, none of those things. So I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. And I was I'm still introverted, but I was introverted and shy. And I was not one to speak. I didn't, ironic, isn't it? How ironic is this? Believe me, everybody sees the irony and comments on it in my personal life. I felt stupid. I felt uncomfortable. I felt embarrassed. I felt weird. I felt like I was very weird for thinking and feeling the way I did, because from what I could tell, nobody else did. So obviously that meant I was strange. So, if you're already feeling strange, you're not gonna talk about it. So that was the deal. So, you fast forward all these years, and I don't know where you are in your life. I don't know what stage or what season you are in your life. But if you're watching this, if this series intrigued you, it's either because you're in the same place that I am, or you're getting very close to it. You're on the edge of it. So my whole goal with this little series that we're going to do here is to help you as I help myself through the newness of this whole Christian faith journey that we're on, or that you might be about to be on. Um, I can tell you it is all of the things. It is all of the things. It is wonderful beyond words. That is such an understatement. It is life changing. It is confusing at times. It is a little not frightening. I guess frightening if you don't know how to approach this with other people, and you're afraid of like their reactions and their responses, and we're definitely going to get into that in the next episode. That is actually the very next episode. We're going to be talking about how we deal with other people when we come out of the closet as Christians. um yeah, so that'll be the next episode. I hope that you were able to stick through this. I know this was a lot about me and my story and my journey, but I tell it because I hope that it might resonate with somebody, even if it's just one person that goes, oh my gosh, same girl, same. Yes. So there might be that one person that is in the same boat or about to be in the same boat, and they would like some company in that boat. And hi, here I am. So yeah, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The next episode, we are going to talk about coming out as a Christian. See you in that one.